Good evening and thank you for joining us. 3 city police officers will face a Police Services Act hearing over misconduct charges. It comes following a decision by the administrator of the Thunder Bay Police Board. 2 sergeants and the head of the local police association are accused of ganging up to harass a fellow officer last August. The incident led to a Police Act investigation conducted by Hamilton Police. Jonathan Wilson has the details.
Police Board Administrator Malcolm Mercer rendered his decision earlier this month to serve notice of a disciplinary hearing to Police Association President Constable Colin Woods, Sergeant Justin Dubuque, and Staff Sergeant Sean Harrison. The 3 officers have been investigated on allegations of misconduct under the Police Act due to a series of events in August of 2021. Mercer's 12-page decision references a workplace mobbing with a fellow officer subjected to harassment and character assassination. The Police Act normally calls for PSA charges to be served within 6 months of a complaint being launched, but Mercer has concluded that the delay until now was warranted. He says the chief at the time, Sylvie Hoth, was not made aware of the complaint until November of that year. She then ordered an external probe, which took 3 months to wrap up, and it took another 3 months for an outside police force, the Hamilton Police Service, to carry out the PSA investigation, which substantiated the allegations of insubordination and discreditable conduct. There's no set date yet for the Police Act hearing process to begin, and none of the 3 officers have been suspended. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Thunder Bay Police have finally provided some details about a violent incident that occurred on Ambrose Street early Monday morning. Police were called just before 4:30 a.m. following reports of a disturbance. When officers arrived, they found a man in his 30s who appeared to have been injured in a recent assault. The victim was transported to the regional hospital and is expected to recover from his injuries. Members of the Major Crime Unit are involved in the ongoing investigation with help from the Forensic Unit. Anyone with information that may assist investigators is asked to contact City Police or Crime Stoppers. OPP have now confirmed that a Red Lake resident was killed in a single vehicle collision on Highway 11 east of Long Lac on Friday evening. The vehicle left the roadway near Highway 631, the turnoff to Hornpain. The driver, identified as 69-year-old Yvonne Sampson, was pronounced dead at the scene, while a passenger was taken to hospital with minor injuries. The investigation continues, and police are thanking members of the public who stopped to help out on scene. Anyone with information is asked to contact the OPP or Crime Stoppers. Mayor Bill Morrow has decided to step down before the upcoming municipal election. Morrow announced this morning that he's already submitted his resignation letter to the city clerk. His final day as mayor will be October 3rd. Morrow will only miss 1 city council meeting before the next council takes over. He says that was a factor in his decision to leave his post early, along with the fact that the current council is now in a lame duck position.
The issues of consequence that we're allowed to chime in on or make decisions about is extremely limited. So, we're pretty much in a position where there's not a lot that this current council can do. So I just felt that rather than hang around till the end and not being in a position to do too much, I thought I'd get started on the next chapter.
Morrow wouldn't specify what that next step in his career will be, other than to say it's in the private sector and he's not seeking another political position. He says he wishes all the best to his colleagues on council, administration, and city staff. The number of ambulances attending the Thunder Bay Regional Hospital each day has nearly doubled over the past 6 months, and code black incidents, that's where all ambulances in the city are tied up at the same time, have become a common occurrence. The hospital and EMS are working in tandem to mitigate the situation, but the organizations are feeling the strain. Lee Noonan has more.
Offload delays are one part of the issue, with reports that as many as a dozen ambulances may have been waiting to offload at the hospital just last Sunday. EMS officials confirmed there was a 3-hour code black that evening. Hospital CEO Rhonda Crocker-Ellicott says they've implemented several new strategies aimed at reducing offload delays, allowing some patients to sit in the waiting room or be transferred to designated spaces in the care of a nurse, freeing up the paramedics. She attributes the continued delays to the increase in EMS volume.
When we typically would see, say, 50 or 60 ambulances a day, We see days where we're seeing 100 ambulances a day. So the volume of ambulance traffic into our emergency department has significantly increased.
Superior North EMS Chief Wayne Gates says the increase in call volume has far outstripped the 3 to 5% that was expected with an aging population.
We've got like a triple whammy. We have the aging population, we have the lasting effect of COVID, the mental health, and again the drug addiction problems we're having in our communities. And so that's why we've seen such a dramatic increase driving our 911 call.
There is now a code black roughly every other day in the city, according to Gates. He says the incidents can last anywhere from a minute to a few hours, but he adds that ambulances may still be responding to calls during a code black.
Our ambulances are tied up, but what also happens if a call comes in, they get cleared, they go onto that call, so we're still technically in a code black.
Gates says hospital staff are doing their best to offload patients and get ambulances back on the road quickly. Both Gates and Crocker-Ellicott emphasize that patients in serious or critical condition are always seen right away.
When volumes are significantly up, and we do have some health human resources shortages, sometimes wait times are impacted, but always the sickest patients, serious illnesses are always treated first.
Lee Noonan, TBT News.
Ontario's new plan for healthcare is getting mixed reaction from across the province, and it's no different here in Thunder Bay. The president of the regional hospital is hopeful about the possibility of growing the healthcare workforce, but the head of the local health coalition believes it's a move toward privatized care. Vasilios Bellows reports.
The Ontario government's healthcare plan was announced last week by Minister of Health Sylvia Jones, who called it a plan to stay open. It has a strong focus on hiring more in the sector. The PCs say their goal is to bring in up to 6,000 healthcare workers. The plan also mentions emergency room relief for northern and rural Ontario by adding 400 physicians, though how Thunder Bay may be affected by that is still unclear. Hospital CEO Rhonda Crocker-Ellicott is hopeful after the release of the plan and believes growing the sector's workforce is critical to pandemic recovery.
Reducing the surgical backlog, that's a significant issue. We have our surgical wait lists have increased by 27% through the pandemic. That's about 1,000 additional cases. But in order for us to do that, of course, we need to have a stable workforce in order to grow capacity to address patients' needs that have been unmet through the wait period.
The health plan also introduces new legislation that, if passed, will help move patients out of hospital and into long-term care faster while they wait for their preferred home. The provincial government has said this is an important move, which will free up much-needed hospital beds. Local Health Coalition co-chair Jules Tupker opposes this legislation and says it moves patients unwillingly into privatized long-term care homes, where death rates have been higher during the pandemic.
So people are now even more aware of the problems in private for-profit homes, and they don't want to go there. And that's what's creating this shortage of or openings rather in these homes. And Doug Ford is making it so that they can force people out of the hospitals into these homes without their consent.
The health plan also includes a $300 million investment in 2022-23 as part of Ontario's surgical recovery strategy. The province is also considering options to increase surgical capacity by adding the number of OHIP cover procedures carried out at independent health facilities. Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
Opposition members also continue to slam the Ford government's plan at Queen's Park, calling the idea of sending hospital patients to homes they haven't chosen to live in a violation of consent. Austin Delaney has more.
Opposition parties at Queen's Park warn of pressure on the elderly in hospital to be shuttled to long-term care or co-pay for their hospital stay to make room for much-needed beds as COVID is expected to surge again in the fall.
Can the minister guarantee right now that if a senior refuses to go to a care home they don't want, they will never be billed for their hospital bed?
I can confirm absolutely 100% that nowhere in the bill that I have introduced does it suggest that seniors will be A, moved from a long-term care, from a hospital without their consent, or B, will be charged.
Under new legislation, elderly and chronic care patients no longer requiring acute care hospitalization could be moved to long-term care with a doctor's approval.
They are going to put tremendous pressure on them to get them out. And they've said, no, we won't put handcuffs on grandma to get her out the door. But they haven't ruled out anything short of that.
The Liberals warn the Ford government's legislation allows for a significant power differential between doctor and patient.
I can say to a patient, I strongly recommend that you do X, Y, or Z. And what the patient hears is not that I strongly recommend. They hear from their doctor that they have to do it.
The opposition critics say it would amount to coerced consent, preying on the most vulnerable people in our society.
This is unfair to patients and their families. It's resting all the power with the government. It's resting all the power on one side. And it's unfair to people. Not everybody can fight. Not everybody has an advocate that's going to help them. So for that reason, it's wrong.
The Liberals call the Ford government's legislation a very blunt instrument.
And just because somebody's old, just because somebody's frail, just because somebody's close to the end of their life, doesn't mean that they don't have exactly the same rights as everybody else in this province.
Austin Delaney, CTV News.
A small First Nation north of Fort Frances is getting a large settlement from Ottawa and the province over flooding of reserve lands that began in the early 1900s. The Matanjaguming First Nation will receive more than $84 million in compensation for a claim that was first filed in 1994. The flooding occurred after a dam was built across the Rainy River at Fort Frances International Falls a century ago, and the flooding still continues. Construction crews continue to work on an upgraded playing surface at Westgate, but school officials admit the new field won't be ready until the spring semester. The renovation includes a brand new track and 2 separate natural grass playing fields equipped with new football goalposts and soccer nets. And while the upgrades won't be ready to welcome Tigers athletes when they return in the fall, Westgate Vice Principal Neil Workman is confident it will be worth the wait.
Yeah, I mean, having a new field at the school is certainly beneficial to our physical education program. All of our sports teams, they're very excited about having the new field and the way it's being repurposed to accommodate more activity out on the field.
Workman says they're still evaluating alternate locations for the football teams to practice. In the meantime, details will be provided closer to the start of the school year. For the 7th year in a row, the team at Wayne Toyota traded in their car keys for spatulas for a barbecue fundraiser in support of the Ronald McDonald House charity. Mother Nature may not have cooperated, but a little rain wasn't going to stop people from turning out to support a worthy cause. Wayne Toyota's Michael Marostica knows firsthand the benefit that Ronald McDonald House charities have. His family spent time in the London home while his daughter received treatment, and he's very appreciative of the continued support from the community.
As you can see, it's been a great turnout, as Thunder Bay always does. They always come together for local charities like this. So I really appreciate everyone who's come out today and everyone who's donated today.
Along with other businesses in town, people step up. When they hear it's Ronald McDonald House, there's no question asked, just, yeah, what do you need? And that's part of being in this community, is it does have a giant heart. So.
For those who were unable to make it today, Holland says there are still a few spots open for the 22nd annual Ronald McDonald House Charity Golf Tournament set for September 9th at Whitewater Golf Club. Information can be found at rmhgolf.com.